Oh, it gives me great pleasure to welcome C, the dynamic, creative, and visionary leader here at Unity Ottawa with seemingly endless energy, Seal, who is well known to all of us. The C is otherwise known as Cheryl Gialla Driskell. She's a spiritual leader here at Unity Ottawa. She will be ordained next year on June 16th as a minister. Unity minister, less than a year. She no longer really knows what came before Unity. It feels to her like she's always been here. She is also the CEO of the Canadian School of Natural Therapies and Spiritual Development and has recently put out her fifth book called Living the Way of Oneness, a book of stories for spiritual awakening. So let's put on our seatbelts and with our open hearts and curiosity, embrace C as she takes us on a journey of discovery called radical shifting from indifference to differentiation. Welcome, C.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Linda. That was lovely. And just to be clear, that song that I chose, You Were Not the Only One, she said that she didn't feel that she was worthy of forgiveness. And that's not a Unity thing. So I love the rest of the song, but it's not accurate to us at Unity. Everybody is worthy of forgiveness, especially for ourselves. So that is a treasure that we can certainly value. So, Anne, if you could unpin Linda, then I can be videotaped.
Yeah, you have to do it at your end. I've done it at my end.
Okay. I'll just do that. Sorry, Linda. We're just going to unpin you temporarily here. There we go. Now the recording will show me. So thank you for being here today. This is such a treasure. And, you know, we just finished our experience with Canada Day. And, you know, when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of Canada Day celebrations because I'm from Hamilton. And it seemed that the old Hamilton people way back decided that Queen Victoria was the queen of everything. And we celebrated Victoria Day for decades after she was gone. So, because she died in 1901, I believe. So we didn't see Canada Day. It was a day off. So we just hung out with the kids on the street, right? But now here in Ottawa, when I moved to Ottawa, Canada Day became a really big thing. Of course, that's where it's all on the TV and the fireworks are going, exploding. And I lived right downtown for at least 5 years. So when those fireworks went off, they were huge and they were right over my head and the earth shook. And I was so thrilled to have that time of really connecting to something greater than myself. And at the same time, you might think, well, it's just a firework, you know, what's that? But it did something, it woke something in me. And I've learned along the way that not everybody celebrates Canada Day, certainly the way I do. In Quebec here, Canada Day is like a no day, unfortunately. It's St. Jean-Baptiste Day that's important here in Quebec. And so I get 2 holidays. I celebrate St. Jean-Baptiste and then I celebrate Canada Day now. But we've also made a lot of mistakes in Canada. And so a lot of people just don't want to deal with Canada Day at all. And as a Unity teacher, leader, you know, what I tend to want to do is remind people that, yes, we've made horrible mistakes, as has every nation on the earth. But what's really important is that my thoughts and my images in mind create after their kind. And so if I really want to live in a beautiful country in the future, I have to perpetuate that today. I have to say, I'm so grateful for this amazing country in which I live. And it is evolving, it is growing, it is learning. The people are learning, the people are bright and awake and aware. And that's how I'm going to perpetuate Canada in the future. For me, it makes a lot of sense to be respecting the children ahead. We give them the best country possible. So as you know, and Linda mentioned, there was another birthday this week. And this one's for Unity. This was the daily word. So you can see my little book here. So I had to laugh recently. I was talking to Kate and she showed me her daily word book. And I go, Kate, that's really small. She says, well, that's the daily word book. But I'm thinking, Kate, here's my book. So mine is twice your size. This is for people like me wearing glasses. So I ordered the big book. And I also order it online. So anybody can at any time get the daily word, you know, online or in the big book or the small book, if it suits you for your purse. That's a good thing too. But what I find about the daily word is that it's July 1st is a great day. Now we have extra reason to celebrate, but it's very differentiated. So the writing isn't so emotional as it is clear, as it is about clear thinking, using intellect and awareness of emotion, but not engaged too deeply. And that's really important. It's very simple, it's very clear, and it isn't stuck in a tirade of big feelings that will hold us back. Because really, emotions are great to have. We get to see, we get to be joyful at the fireworks, we get to be joyful at the soccer game or the football game. We get to be grateful to hold those little beings of love and laughter in our arms. And then there's a place where emotions are not really invited. They're not welcomed. To the degree at which we experience them, perhaps at home with our families, especially when you're at work. And so to be differentiated is great at work. And it really helps as your kids are growing older or your grandkids, because they just need a good listener. You know, that's certainly something that I've learned along the way. So I have this interesting history. Well, my father did. He was raised in Ottawa, but he came to Hamilton where his sister had moved. Her husband got a job there, and he ended up working in summers during school on the boats. So everybody in Hamilton knew what it meant to go to the boats. And the boats in Hamilton Harbor were called the Lady Mikasa and the Lady Hamilton. In fact, he met my mom there when she was 14. And 4 years later, they were married. But what's interesting is that Dad knew how to work on a boat, how to manage a boat, how to survive seasickness. Now, he wasn't on the sea, but sometimes Lake Ontario could get pretty nasty. So he was taught that you needed to hunker down to the center of the boat and go as low as possible into the boat. And that would keep you from being seasick. So let me show you what that's like. So imagine this is you at center and you're in the boat, but you've decided to sit near the bottom, right? Here's you. I'll move that, right? So the waves are coming. Oh, there goes another one. There goes a lot of waves. You're missing a lot of waves in life when you are low into the center. How else can you do that? Maybe through your center connection with the one loving source, low into center, to the heart, to the belly, connecting with the divine nature that you are. It saves a lot of waves, a lot of crashing, a lot of being overwhelmed by the turbulence of life. You know, the Buddhists knew this years and years ago. So when the Buddha, Siddhartha, the first Buddha, came along, he was sitting under a Bodhi tree for, I think it was about 3 weeks, and he wasn't moving, and he went into samadhi, and he had entered samadhi with the question, which was, how do I release suffering or live in a world where there is suffering? And when he came to, the first thing to enter his mind, because he cleared it completely, was the middle way. The middle way, being at center, right? When you are at center in the middle way, you don't go through the rock and roll of life. As much as it can feel really great to be in those emotions sometimes, I was just remembering when we heard that song, that last song, and it's when those drums kicked in and when that bass was playing, I was like, yes, I am so happy. Like, I love music. I love concerts. I love dancing. And when that bass and drums kick in, and I have them in my house, like we have drums galore, we have a bass, we have all the instruments you can use in a rock and roll band. And I felt alive. Emotions help us feel alive. But they're here, and they're here. They're not at the center, because communication is different. You can feel, you can be connected to your emotions, which is wonderful. But when you've got to communicate you to the world, being differentiated matters a lot. So there's this little known Canadian, Eric Butterworth, from Winnipeg, Manitoba. And he's one of Unity's greatest speakers and writers. He was prolific. And if you can imagine, he filled the Lincoln Center every week for 2+ decades, which is incredible. People were seeking, deeply seeking something within themselves that they couldn't find in everyday religion. So they sought that spiritual awakening, and they found Eric and a lot of the other teachers too. And he said something very interesting. He said a lot of very interesting things, but in the book called The Creative Life, which is my favorite book, it's one of his smaller books he's done to just discover the power within, and I think the universe within. And so he said this. He said, God is not more centered in Jesus than you. It's more that Jesus was centered in God. So while you and I are more likely centered in levels of limitation, Jesus was centered in God. He was present to God. He was consciously connecting to God, the oneness within. I call it the loving source. Some people call it the Brahman, the Tao, or Allah, but that's spaciousness within. He further said, you might consider centering your consciousness in God, resonating with God, the frequency. He saw God as divine energy. Now we know from Dr. Paul last week, that's not how Charles saw it. That's not how Paul sees it. But some of us who believe in the energy or consciousness or conscious energy resonate. We vibrate with God. We feel that light. So when we open up to those great experiences, maybe of fireworks, maybe of a concert, maybe of just holding a beautiful being in our arms, we resonate and we feel that love. And it gets brighter and lighter because of our connection to the one loving source. And then he said this, which I love. This is one of my favorite statements. He said, you are not dealing with God out there, but a God in whom you live and move and have being. The God in whom you live and move and have being. I love that statement. It's one of my 2 top statements in my life, right? And I had forgotten to tell you earlier that my original top statement coming from the Daily Word, the first words ever out of the Daily Word, where God within is my light and my understanding. My light and my understanding. Pretty much I can carry myself through the rest of my life with that one statement, that God within is my light and understanding. And then Eric Butterworth comes along and he adds, in whom we live and move and have being. Those 2 resonate so deeply, and they carry something really profound. They carry such awareness, and they keep people differentiated. They keep you centered. They keep you allowing your intellect to be the key to your presentation, to your expression, to your sharing, to your devotion to life. and to yourself. So if you show up from the center, from the middle way, you are differentiated already. And you can then feel the explosion of openness with God, which feels like love. That's why people say God is love, because when they get there, when they get to that loving space, they feel love. I feel love, and love begets joy. So love is the center space. And guess where? If you're not swinging back and forth like this in that tirade of emotions, and you're in love at center, joy is here. Joy goes up and down. You can go from love to all these other feelings, all these other experiences where you're not reactive, but you're centered in them, and you find your joy. And sometimes we need that. We need that joy to motivate us in our lives. The Apostle Paul from the New Testament knew this. He wrote 13 letters, 7 of which can be validated as his teachings, 6 of which are called pseudepigraphic. He might have asked someone to write a letter, or they've tried to copy his style. But in Ephesians, Paul said this: be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another. And the reason he was able to say that was because he was expressing from a differentiated space. He was able to express with love and care because he was centered in God. And with God, you, in your human experience, express differentiatedly. So being centered is like a primal need. We want it. We want to be connected to the oneness. We want to be centered. There's this deep urge, a primal need to be here. And that's why you found unity. That's why you found other parts of your life that are exploring spirituality in other areas. So think for a moment of how you center every day. What is it that brings you to center? Is it meditation? Is it prayer, contemplation? These are the main tools at Unity. But I've learned over the years that we also use other tools. And I've seen some of you. I know that you bike. I know that you garden. I know that you walk. I know you use Qigong or Tai Chi, right? I know that you might go for a climb or traveling, just allowing things to flow. These are all ways in which you find your center in God and can become differentiated in your expression. What I'm going to ask you to do and consider is why you do those things in that inner peace space. When you enter a state from periodically with thinking, sometimes you just go into no thought. But if you are in thought in the beginning, use a statement that is very unity, a statement of gratitude, a statement that is affirmative. So for instance, if I'm taking walks a day with my dogs, I would be saying, I am gratefulness, I am happiness. With every step, my left foot gratefulness, my right foot happiness. I am gratefulness, I am happiness. I am love, I am joy. I am peacefulness, I am light. Whatever activity you're participating in, consider inviting in not only the activity which will help you expand into the center of God, but also the affirmative statements that will take you to that next level, so that when you are outside of your walk, you will be hearing in the back of your head, hey, I'm grateful. I am peaceful. I am love. It will just occur. And that'll be really great if you have 10 people around you at dinner that day, because you need to center. We all need to center. Busyness. Right now, I have a little nephew here. He's 10 years old, and you can imagine how busy he's keeping us. I mean, I don't know if it isn't swimming, it's fishing. If it isn't that, it's walking, it's running with the dogs, it's playing frisbee. Now I'm playing frisbee golf. Who would have thought? But I've been centered to do this because I am crazy busy and tired this week. But I had to get centered to participate in his life too. You know, being centered and being in this differentiated space is like living the fifth principle of unity, which is I live the truth I know. The truth I know. That truth is that there's one power and one presence through everything, everywhere, and it is in me. It is in me to be fully lived. And that is what blows my mind into surrender. Letting it go. Letting go of mind is an amazing treasure. Just let it go, decide. And I will just be one. I will be one with my center, with the indwelling source. So in psychology and sociology, differentiation is the word that they use. But at unity, when I'm differentiated and I'm expressing my center, I'm expressing God's love and compassion, I'm expressing my Christ self. So maybe we could consider that the Christ expression is similar to the differentiation experience. Perhaps not as focused in being loving, not as focused in being compassionate, but at least being centered. When we are in the Christ self, we can imagine that in every situation, we are balanced, we are in harmony, we are in flow with life, we are centered, we are alive, we are abundant, we are love in very funky clothing. So Jesus is our way shower at unity. He's not our savior. He's just a guy who showed up to teach us something, like the Buddha, like Krishna, like Muhammad, there to show us something. And in the book of John, which is my favorite book in the New Testament, chapter 8, verse 7, we learn that he said something very differentiated to a group of crazy people. He said, he who is without sin cast the first stone. Right? That's a reference to an experience of an angry group of people throwing stones at a woman who was judged as a prostitute. But instead of getting engaged with all that emotion that was going on around him, Jesus was differentiated. Jesus was in a state of deep compassion and love. He was in the Christ. And he said, he who is without sin cast the first stone. Because he knew. He used his intellect at that moment. It's important that we use our intellect. He said, nobody's perfect here. Move on. You don't have a right to judge somebody else because you yourself has made a ton of errors. For Jesus, it's okay. At unity, it's okay. We know there's no sin. We make mistakes. There might be error judgment, but there's no sin we have to repent for. We need to accept ourselves as fallible beings and be differentiated in how we express ourselves thereafter. So in the daily word from May 30th this year, I want to read something to you that's very differentiated and very loving. It says, as I look back on my life, I recall times I had inadvertently hurt someone's feelings. Feeling regret, I may question how I could have better handled the situation. Self-forgiveness requires love and compassion. I can't change the past, but I can do my best to move forward by treating others as I would like to be treated. If I can apologize for past actions, I do. I center myself in peace and love. I pray my words and actions be motivated by love, compassion, and thoughtfulness. I affirm my responses to future conflict or misunderstanding will be tempered with patience and understanding. And that, my friends, is differentiation, the Christ coming through. What if we could learn to accept that at our center, everything is possible? I'd like to leave you with a call to action. Perhaps with me, you can commit to going to your center when things get tough or before you speak. I commit to going to my center. And sometimes we have to strike the match to turn on the light, right? Without striking, without bringing our attention to something that needs to happen, things don't happen. The light won't go on. The same with God. God is there at all times, keeping you alive. But if you don't bring you to God, you won't feel God. And so we have to choose to go here. It's one thing to know of God. It's another thing to remember that God is within us. So use this connection and connect with its awareness, with the awareness of God within for your highest good. What a radical shift that could be. So expressing from the center of the loving source from this moment forward is a treasure for you and everybody around you. So thank you for joining me today. Blessings and light. And now we're going to move into a little meditative prayer.
Sharing in the breath of divine life, we inhale and exhale as one. Every breath draws awareness deeper into the inner sanctuary where we draw from infinite power for the moment of need and possibility. Breathing in, God is. Breathing out, I am. Quieting extraneous thoughts and stilling the physical body, we enter the field of prayer. My thoughts are anchored in divine peace. Breathing in, God is peace. Breathing out, I am peace. Every cell of my body and every space in consciousness responds to the command of peace. Peace in my brain, peace in my heart, peace in my body, peace in my emotions. I embody open-heartedness and open-mindedness in peace. The discerning power of divine wisdom is my inner resource. I never need worry about making decisions when I attune to divine wisdom. I pray, affirming my capacity to notice and heed whispers of truth. Whether they arise while I pray or as I move about my day, I am learning to trust my gut, the seat of divine wisdom in my body system. In faith, I am free. Affirming the perceiving power of faith, I sharpen my perception of circumstances so that I focus on the truth. The transforming work of faith is my practice, in prayer and throughout the day. I stand in conviction of a truth that I cannot see, but I can sense. And I live in full expectation of all that is for me. Freely I give, and graciously I receive. The Spirit of God, everywhere, and the essence of everything, is the source of my abundant life. When thoughts of scarcity cloud my vision, I respond by giving freely in a state of gratitude. I welcome and embrace all the blessings that come my way. Holding my thoughts in order, I serve the world. I hold the world and all beings in the light of peace and love. Guarding my thoughts, I choose compassion. Measuring my words, I choose encouragement. Preparing my actions, I choose kindness. I order my thoughts in service to a better world. God is, and I am. As we conclude this time of prayer and return to the day's activities, we remain aware of our spiritual capacity to embody the divine. Let our prayer lead to inspired action in the world, in our communities and families, and in our daily lives.